On this channel, one thing I wanted to explore a bit more was the relationship between Australia and New Zealand. Two very interesting two countries I admire greatly. Both have a lot of similarities and both have a lot of differences. I think that's fair. You know, these are two ex-British colonies, but they have their own unique cultures, own unique geographies as well. And I'm very interested in like indigenous people of different countries, and I am very interested in like the First Nations people of Australia, the Maori people of New Zealand, things I want to learn a lot more about. And I'm going to start learning, just about the kind of differences between these two countries and the similarities, and what people from each country think of each other, what they think of each other's country. So tell me in the comments what your thoughts on that are. But we're going to check out this video today. It's called "Why Isn't New Zealand a Part of Australia?" Now, I never knew that was even a possibility. I thought it was just always two separate countries and that's just the way it was. But maybe at one point there might have been a chance they were combined. But let's check out this video and learn more.
Despite being the current reigning champion of places that people forget to put on maps, it's also an independent country. This independence did not occur through one single event like that of the United States, but through a century-long process of reform. And across this century, many were fairly sure that New Zealand would become a part of the new Commonwealth of Australia, in the same way that Quebec was obviously going to be a part of Canada, or how Bombay was obviously going to be part of India. Yet, as you'll know, this never happened. But why? Why isn't New Zealand a part of Australia? To begin, we have to go back to those ancient days of pre-Australia, sometimes called the mid-19th century. At this point, Australia wasn't one colony, but instead 6, and they were, as far as the British were concerned, a part of an 8-colony collective, the other 2 being Fiji and, of course, New Zealand. All of these colonies had different economies, different foreign interests, and different cultures, which is why, at first, many were opposed to federalisation. Things changed when Germany started eyeing up the region, which made those in the 8 colonies pretty nervous. And when the colony of New South Wales changed its mind about federalisation, the other colonies now feared being left out, and thus, it was time to build an Australia. For New Zealand, this being cut off was less of a problem. Whilst New South Wales, Tasmania, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia and the other one may have traded primarily with each other, New Zealand, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia and the other one may have...
Did he just call Western Australia the other one? It's an absolute diss. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far.
Traded primarily with each other, New Zealand traded mostly with Britain. There were other reasons for New Zealand rejecting federation too. The first was the massive distance between itself and Australia, which for reference is the same distance between Britain and Morocco. Another was that the drafting of the documents for Australian federation...
Let me see this, the capital, Canberra. For some reason everyone think it's Sydney. Eventually we'll get around to dealing with those pesky emus. We'll add New Zealand and Fiji at some point. Yeah, I'm also interested. I never really thought about Fiji. I'm interested to know their role in this also.
Distance between Britain and Morocco. Another was that the drafting of the documents for Australian Federation were done by those who lived in Australia, which might sound incredibly obvious, but New Zealand and Fiji weren't given an opportunity to contribute much to the discussions, and thus they were largely seen as places that would be added to Australia as opposed to a foundational part of it, which upset many New Zealanders who wanted to be seen as equals. And this lack of consideration for New Zealand's distinction is what mostly scuppered any chance of it being a part of Australia. You see, New Zealand had a long and storied history between the island's indigenous people, the Maori, and the European settlers, the Pakeha, and there were concerns that integration into Australia, a place not highly rated on the kindness to the people already living thereometer, would mean that the Maori would again be reduced to second-class citizens and importantly violate the Treaty of Waitangi, which as a result would lead to another war. There were fair reasons to believe this, since the draft constitution explicitly stated that the indigenous people were to be ruled over by the whites there.
That's interesting as well, yeah. So it says the whites in charge, half US, half British system, New Zealand can come too. It's like almost like just expecting New Zealand to be part of that. I can see why that might put their backs up. Yeah, I'm interested to know more about the Maori people and their role. They wanted to be more equal. How does that show itself today? Are they treated as equal in the New Zealand system of like the current times?
Since the draft constitution explicitly stated that the indigenous people were to be ruled over by the whites there, and New Zealand thus demanded that this not apply to them and that they would refuse to join unless Australia amended its constitution. which it agreed to. So why wasn't this enough? Well, it was mostly a concern by New Zealanders about the number of Chinese and Asian workers in Australia, and particularly the potential that those workers would head to New Zealand, which the leaders there really didn't want. And when Australia federated in 1901, it was these combined reasons that saw New Zealand sit it out. Although there is still a clause in the Australian Constitution that allows New Zealand to join whenever it wants, so the door is still open. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for...
That was a really interesting little introduction to the relationship, just a kind of brief history. Yeah, why New Zealand never became part of Australia. So kind of two of the main things were that almost they were expected just to join. It was like taken for granted, so I can see why that might be put their backs up. But obviously I never knew that part about them being worried about immigration and immigrants. Is that still a worry today? Do people still worry about that? Like Asian immigrants coming to New Zealand. How is immigration different between these two countries? You know, I've learned a lot about Australian immigration, how it's, in my opinion, very well managed and they integrate people very well. Is it the same in New Zealand? Do they attract a lot of immigrants? I know they do attract a lot of immigrants from places like UK. I know I have friends who have moved to New Zealand and set up life there, really enjoy the country. Are they very open to everybody coming there, or is it more controlled, or they're kind of against it? And yeah, I never really went on to talk too much more about Fiji there. I'm also interested to know, Fiji's just kind of like not part of the conversation much at the end there, but what is the current status of Fiji as a country and relationship between these two other countries also? How do people think of people from Fiji as well? Do you all have this like strong relationship because you're from the same part of the world, like Oceania? But yeah, tell me more about this, what you think about that video. Do you think New Zealand will ever join, take them up on that offer to join being part of Australia or not? I'm thinking possibly not, but you never know. And yeah, tell me more about what you think of each other's country. Have you been to each other's country and what you think of it actually being there also? But I'm going to be doing more to do with this, so recommend some other videos. Tell me more about the history of this relationship in these two countries, and I'll check that out soon. But yeah, tell me your thoughts on this one. Thanks.